So, you get out of the military and you start training this very dangerous militia group called Diagolon. And, for the viewers, we're going to get in exactly what Diagolon is, but I'm just afraid that this segment's going to be cut up and it's going to be on, CBC tomorrow. That it's a joke.
I don't know.
Okay?
They're scared of me. They don't want to. They haven't said anything about me since I got out of prison. So
yeah. So I was asked a few days before you, when we both testified at the Public Order Emergency Commission. I was asked about Diagolon. Yeah. The only thing I regret about that answer to Diagolon was that I couldn't remember the vice president's name was Philip. That was the only part of it that I couldn't get right.
He's never going to forgive you for that either. He's very upset about this.
Oh, I know. But I remember during the convoy, because I had heard of Diagolon from a really good friend of mine's son, like 6 months before I heard about Diagolon. And but during the convoy, you had shared a video where you and a couple of the guys were on there laughing hysterically, and you were showing clips of the Liberal Party.
That was during.
Talking.
That was
during the convoy. It was in the middle of the debates, and they're talking about the domestic terrorist group Diagolon. And you guys are all laughing on the thing, and I see this video, and I called you, and I said, Jeremy, tell me everything there is to know about Diagolon right now, because I know we're going to get hit with this hard, right? So we had a great conversation, but I'd like for you to kind of share with the viewers Diagolon. Like, how did Diagolon start? Because I think it's a fascinating story about how it started to where it is today.
Yeah, well, I'm going to start writing a book here soon. It's probably going to take me a year, but hopefully I can get it out there, because it's just
Mine has taken me over a year.
Oh, it's if you're going to do it right, it's a commitment for sure. Oh, yeah, it's pretty ridiculous. So the name itself should have been a clue. I thought it was like, that's a really stupid, obviously silly, ridiculous name. That's like something you'd see out of The Simpsons, right? So I was like, that's funny. What happened was, and it really what it is now is it's like the fan club. It's the support network of my podcast, and now it's kind of become its own kind of community of just like-minded people. It's like that's their banner, that's their try. It's like we're the Montreal Canadiens fans, because they that's what their flag is for, and that's what it means. It's just that's who they are, that's what they're into. But how it started was during the pandemic. It was clear there's a cultural divide between certain areas, and Midwest United States, Texas, Florida, Alberta, and Saskatchewan at the time weren't following any of the mandates. They're like, this is we're not doing this lockdown nonsense crap in Alaska and so on. So I was like, there's like a swath of like a diagonal line from Alaska to Florida in the center kind of parts of the continent are all basically conservative leaning, suspicious and questioning this whole thing, and then the other sides were the opposite. So I said, we'll everybody just move to these areas, and we'll just create a super state and separate. Like it was, again, obviously this isn't impossible. This isn't going to happen, but we're just having fun with it. And then we thought, we should have a name. What should we call it? And that's came up with the name for it. I made the flag for it on the toilet. I was like, it's a black square. I took my finger and went, yeah, like a couple times. I'm like, there's your, because it's Alaska to Florida. That was the flag. And then there's all kinds of national games, and like it just became this fantasy, to make fun of and kind of cope with the craziness that we were all enduring. And it kind of evolved into just that's synonymous now with like me and the other guys, and the community, and which is an online content creation community mostly. And then there's some political activism. I've done some public speaking and rallies and stuff like that, but. That's really all there is to it. There's certainly no militia at any point. Like, no. I'm very capable of doing that. This was my job for nearly 15 years. I used to train teenagers how to, go use machine guns and automatic grenade launchers at night vision in the rain in the woods with, 50 other guys, and make sure nobody gets killed. That's what I did. So they're like, oh, you guys are like, okay. I didn't teach anybody how to tie their boots properly, let alone anything else. So if this is a militia I've created, I've done an absolutely horrible job. Terrible job. Yeah.
But the origins of this, there was a barbecue. I seem to remember you were looking at planning a big barbecue to try to get like-minded people to come together, and I think that was out in, it could have been Saskatchewan. Yeah.
This is when the law enforcement really got cranky about it, because they don't mind if you're online. They kind of do. You get monitored by the
the state.
Well, them and their contract goon goblin people that live on the internet and have nothing to do but follow you around and hate everything you're doing. And, we're going to tweet about it. I'm like, I got my little violin here that I play for them. I'm just like, oh, are you guys going to have a little tweet? You're going to tweet? Well, I'm just going to here. This is just for you. Let me hear all about your. I don't care.
Yeah.
But there was just because a lot of these people had known each other online, and I'd been at this for a few years at this point, and I was in Saskatchewan, and there's a lot of my audience is Western Canadian based. A lot of them are Ontario, but a lot of them are Western Canada. So we're like, let's have some and 50 or 60 people came from all over the country. Most of them, 99% of them, were complete strangers, in real life until they met each other, and everybody was drinking. So I'm like, this could get really bad, but everyone had a great time. And I remember just kind of standing back from the crowd. They're all sitting around a fire. There's a couple of guys playing guitars, and there was kids there, and their wives had brought, and everybody was. I was like, look how, and everyone was so happy. They had such a good time because they felt at home amongst their own people, their tribe, their culture, right? Like their in-group of cultural in-group. And it's a need. It's a human need to be, in your where your people are. You need to have that, or for your sanity, for your happiness.
And it is during the pandemic, so there were. This is post lockdowns.
Oh yeah, this was not allowed at the time, right? Yeah. So I started. So I said it was another friend, our army officer guy actually was quoting. I don't think Nietzsche or Jung or somebody, but he said I think the quote was just "find the others." And that really struck me. I was like, that is a very profound thing to say. That's a big key to life, isn't it? So I started saying, find your friends, is what I called it. And they said, oh, he's going around recruiting a militia, which was, no, I'm trying to, like this pocket of people, like I was like, this needs to happen everywhere. And people should be doing this everywhere and coming together and meeting each other and getting out of these shells and remembering that we do exist as a people and a nation and a community, and we can have each other's back and support each other. We don't have to sit there and wait for the government to save you, to deal with it. I mean, because that's like a slave mentality. This isn't who we are as people, as a Canadian, people to sit around, oh, I hope the government saves the day and I'm just going to sit here quietly and obey everything. Like, that's crazy. So I started doing that, and then all of a sudden, the police are poking around, and CSIS and all these. I've had hundreds of people tell me now they've had them come to their work and their wife's work and their children's school. They're just looking for whatever, because of the astroturfing narrative that these government stooges had put out there, and these media clowns like, it's a militia and it's all this kind of stuff. So I had leaned into it at one point, but the goal of trolling the anti-hate network specifically, but also like the media, I figured they might pick up on this. But once people sink their teeth into this and really look at this, it's going to blow up in their face, because it's laughable, right? That was the idea. So we took a picture, and I was like, at one of these barbecues, there's like 50, 60 people, and I had some of these like skull masks they're also afraid of. I bought them on Amazon for this exact purpose, and had some guys, and some of them had their shotguns and stuff. They're all legally owned, there's nothing illegal about it. And we just took this picture, and I put like redacted over everybody's faces and stuff, and of course they took it predictably and said, look, oh my God, it's the terrorists, and I was like, oh, this is going to be so funny when it blows up in their face later. But to my surprise, there's no adults really in the room anymore, and the media just didn't ask questions, just went with it. Nobody asked me a single question. They just took it at face value and ran with it. I didn't get interviewed once. I've still yet to this day be asked a single question by the RCMP or CSIS or anyone regarding any of this. Not a single, and I'm not hiding. I've been very open about that. I'll talk to anybody anytime, and nobody. No, they don't. They're just looking for a bet. They're looking for. They need an excuse, and they need a punching bag to justify what they've been doing. And I mean, what do you take Diagolon out of the picture? How do you justify the Emergencies Act? What's your, what do you got? You got nothing. You got.
Yeah.
That was the best thing. That was the best they could do.
Yeah, you've got a guy with a Nazi flag, and another guy with what's the other flag? The Confederate flag.
Yeah.
To me, it was a Dukes of Hazzard flag, but like you've got the Confederate flag, you got the Nazi flag, and we heard the testimony of CSIS. I was sitting in the audience listening to the Three Stooges up there.
I didn't get to hear it. I was in prison.
Yeah, you exactly. So they bring these three in, and they go through this whole script on how they assess ideological violent extremism, or IMVE.
Yeah. Show me the violence.
They go through this whole outline on how they do it, and that it's their job to investigate. And then Brendan Miller says, okay, well, you've got this guy with the Nazi flag. You got the guy with the Confederate flag. You've got all these photos. You've got the guy's license plate. You just outlined for us that your job is to make assessment about this. And he said, who's the guy in that photo? Who is the guy with the Confederate flag? They're like, I don't know.
You don't know.
It's like you just sat there on the stand and explained to us that it was your job to investigate this exact kind of thing, and you don't know who that is. You know why you don't know who it is? Because it was probably you guys. It was probably CSIS who had the Nazi flag or the Confederate flag, looking for as a honey trap. Is really the way I see it.
Well, it proves that they're interested in policing thought and politics, not crime.
Yes,
which means you're the Stasi then. So, you know. I mean, you guys are embarrassing. And I said this during the inquiry. I said, this is the biggest national intelligence failure in history, in the history of the country, probably the world. Of any Western country, this is the most embarrassing thing anyone's ever done.
I said the same thing.
And to throw a bone to, like, I'm obviously no fan of the Liberal government, but I don't think any of these political parties, I think they're all scum and liars and professional manipulators. But, you know, they're like, oh, CISA says China this and China that. And I'm like, I don't believe anything that comes out of those people. Like, they're incompetent. They're either, or both, grotesquely incompetent, or they're politically compromised to the point that they're just political police. They're just thought police, and they're just being directed to whoever they're told to go after and silence and persecute and put in prison or whatever. Because what happened to ISIS, and where are all these Chinese influence in these police stations? And you know, there's other things going on, and you have 50% of your domestic resources directed towards me. I don't know how you justify that to and it's embarrassing. They should be disbanded. That entire organization should just be disbanded, in my opinion.
I said the same thing when I testified. I said, you know, there should be a public inquiry about CSIS and the intelligence community to focus on Diagolon. That is something that is probably one of the most embarrassing things, at least in a decade, coming from our intelligence community.
They said, you know, you had the public safety minister up there saying, hey, it's a violent group of people with a steel resolve, and they're organized and they're everywhere, and it's like, okay, and that's why we need the emergency. Okay, where's the arrests? Where's the where is it? Nothing. Nothing has happened. So I guess they're still out there planning these attacks, aren't they?